Okay. All right, so this is kind of what we'll be making today. We'll be doing some brochure menus. So let me get you started with a new document. So we'll go File and New. And so this is going to be what you see whenever you're opening a new document. You guys should probably be pretty familiar with this already, but let's just go through it one more time. So I'm going to set it to inches because we're in the US and we to work in inches. But as you see across the top, these are some typical sizes for documents that you might be using in InDesign. We have more presets down here. You click the little plus sign, and then Adobe provides templates as well, and you can go and find more templates if you go down here into Adobe Stock. We're going to be making a trifold brochure menu, and we're going to make it the size of a printer paper, so we're going to use letter. And feel free to follow along. All right, so over here on the right, we're going to set it to inches. We've got 8.5 by 11. We're going to set it to horizontal or landscape. We want to do 2 pages because we want the front and the back. And then we want to set 3 columns because it's a trifold brochure. Over here in the gutter, we're going to set that to a 1/2 inch. And then in the margins, we're also going to set those to a 1/4 inch. And then I want this preview button checked so that I can kind of look over here and see what's being made over on the side. And then we also want to set our bleed to 0.25. And click create or enter. Okay, I have an extra document up here. So we'll go over to pages, and I'm going to delete that top one, delete spread, and then we'll just duplicate the spread. I'm going to right click over here on pages, and on the thumbnail, I'm going to hit allow pages to shuffle. And so that'll let us see both of them at the same time right next to each other. And then over here on the left, you can go to this page tool and we can shift that page over just a little bit.
What was the column gutter supposed to be?
Oh, let's go back to that.
I had to wait for mine to boot up or whatever.
Oh, sorry. So it'll be 3 columns and they should be 25-inch gutters or 1/4 inch gutters, sorry.
Okay.
Right, and then, oh, sorry, I think, sorry, 1/2 inch gutters because we want them to have enough room to have a 1/4 inch in between each side. So I'll kind of explain that in a second. So it'll be 1/2 inch gutters, 0.25 for the margins and 0.25 for the bleed. And then we'll click create. Okay.
Okay.
And I'm going to right click, allow pages to shuffle. And that should let me set these up next to each other. Okay, so up here at the top, I'm going to minimize this just a little so I can see behind the zoom controls. But up here at the top, I'm on a PC. A lot of what you might be seeing is for a Mac. So just as we go through the key commands and things like that, they might just look a little bit different. But up here, we're going to go over to layout. And we want to do create alternate layout, or sorry, create guides. And over in columns, we want to set that to 3 columns and clear out the gutter. And that's just going to let us see our fold lines. So we'll click OK.
So wait, on create guide, you put 3 on numbers, correct?
Yeah, let me pull that back up. So we have create guides, and then number is going to be 3, gutter is going to be 0. And we don't want any rows or anything in rows. So it should look like that.
How did you get your pages to be side by side?
So I right-clicked on the thumbnail, and I said allow document pages to shuffle.
Mhm.
And so that's going to let us kind of move them around up and down.
So mine's on that. Like it's check marked, but it won't. I can't get I don't know how to get my
Oh,
page
it
to
should
move.
be unchecked. So you want to take the check mark off.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. What other questions do you guys have?
So how do I get it to move after that?
This page tool right here is going to let us move these around.
Oh, okay.
And we just want them to be right next to each other.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Wait, how do you get it to move once?
Oh, so that they're up next to each other.
Yeah,
You
like
can
I
grab the
click
little
on the
icons
page
and move
and
them around and kind of hover the document kind of right next to it. See how that's happening?
okay, I got it.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we can have them either above each other or below each other or right next to each other. Sometimes it's easier to see if they're working right next to each other side by side. So I'm going to go back to this document just so I can explain kind of the layout of everything really quick. Um, okay, so what you should be seeing is each of these panels is going to be, I have them labeled as A, B, and C, and then down here, let me turn that one to D, E, and F. And this is just going to be a little bit of an explainer on how this is going to be folding. So if you have a trifold brochure, what you would see first, if you had it just closed, is you're going to see C first. And so that's going to be our outside front cover. And then if we open that up, what we would see is D, E, and F if it was laid out that way. And so behind the flap of D is going to be C. Behind the flap of F is going to be A. And then the back cover is going to be B behind E. And so you can kind of start to picture it like that. If you folded C in, you would see F. And so you would see C, F here. Or if you had C open, you'd see D over here. And you would have A closed. So you wouldn't be able to see E or F anymore. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So that's just going to give us a little bit of an idea of the layout for this. And I'll post this on Moodle too so that you can click through here. So if we're looking at that this way, then we have A, B, and C, and we have D, E, and F over here. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is work on my cover page. And I'll turn these all back on. Okay. So what I'm trying to create here is, and let me change how I'm sharing so I can share my whole screen. Okay. So there's a place in Edmond. It's called the One Cafe, and this is the one that I'm choosing to kind of revise. And so I'm trying to have us when we're making our projects using real life examples so that we kind of have something tangible to grasp onto to feel like did we compare to what they have? Did we have something that we like better? Do we have something that we like on theirs that we want to incorporate? Things like that. And so I'm just looking at their menu and I want to see how we can pull things from their menu, but kind of design it more. And so they make crepes and poke bowls, and they're really good, and I really like them. And so I want to make something like that on my version, except I want to use paragraph styles and table styles to create it, and I just want to kind of add some extra flair. Something I did was I went on Behance and found a template that I really liked that I was like, oh, we could follow something like that. Not copy it exactly, but just go off of what they're doing to kind of get this kind of sense of something really clean, really fresh looking, and pretty classy. Um, and so it's always a good idea to do some research beforehand and see what you like and see what kind of vibe you're going for. See what the place that you're going to create your menu off of already is doing, what they're trying to draw attention to, things like that. And then for photos, what I'm doing is I went to a website called pexels.com and I could find some free images. So I found some crepes. It's called Pexels, and if you go on Moodle down here in useful websites, it's going to be listed on there too, right here. Oh. Yeah. There's another site that's handy called I think it's Free Pick. And this one's pretty good too. The images that they provide have watermarks when you're looking at them. But if we click free, so you can see the watermarks across them, but once you download them, the watermarks will go away. There we go. Okay, so that's kind of some places to get some of these photos for your designs, and they're free. They're free license. And so that's where I'm going to be pulling from, and I have some downloaded already. I'll go ahead and upload those when I upload this file with it. So the first thing we want to do is create our cover panel. And I'm going to drop in some text. Alrighty. And so over here by the pages panel, we have properties. And you should be pretty familiar with this already. Down here in the character panel, we can change our font, that font style, and then our text sizes, our spacing and leading, and some kerning. So I'm going to kind of adjust my header really quick for my title. All right, I like how that looks, but I want this "the" to kind of sit on top of the one cafe, so I want to move the spacing up a little bit. Okay, and then when I'm happy with that, I also want to shrink my text box so that it's about the size of my header. And then just in case it's been a minute to move around, I'm holding spacebar, and that's going to give me the hand tool automatically so that I can click and drag around my page. If I want to zoom in and out, I can hold Alt and do the scroll wheel. I can also do Control or Command on a Mac and press the minus key and the plus key while holding Control down. Alrighty, over here I have the shape tool, we have the rectangle tool. And I'm just going to drag out a block over here. I want to change the appearance of my rectangle, and so I'm going to change that fill to black. And I want stroke to be none, so I can set it to 0 point and it's going to fill in with no stroke on its own. If I do control and the bracket keys, it's going to let me push it back to the back. But since my text box has black text as well, I want to change that color to paper. And same with the tiny the. Drag my rectangle back. And now if I hit control and bracket or command bracket on a Mac, that's going to push that forward and backwards. You can also use this arrange button here and say bring to front or send to back. And I want it to be a little bit smaller than that so that it can show behind it. And I want my one cafe to kind of be off center a little. Okay, so then I'm going to drag out a rectangle frame and place my image, my first image in here. Should be about like that, I think. And so you can see that it's going past that page. That's going to be our bleed. And so that's saying that when we send it to the printer, it's not going to assume that the picture ends right on the line. And so if these are misaligned, it cuts it off at a white line or giving it a white line. What it'll say is even if the printer is misaligned a little bit, it won't leave a white edge. It's going to go all the way past the page. And so I'm going to go and into my file explorer and find my crepe and drop that into our frame. And you can see it came in really big. I want to go to fitting, so I right clicked on top of that object and set fitting, and I set fill frame proportionally. And so that's going to scooch it a lot more relatively in. And then I want to send that to the back as well, so I'll do control and press the bracket key until this black square pops in front of it. Okay, does anyone have any questions so far? Are we feeling pretty good?
I just want to ask, how if well, when we pick the company, how do we get the good a photo with the logos they have?
Sorry, say that again.
When we pick the companies that we're choosing for our menus, how do we find good photos of them that isn't just like just kind of not that good picture?
Yeah, so I think that the Pexels website will have good quality photos. But for things like the logo and things like that, there should be on Moodle also. Down at the bottom is examples of brand style guides. And so that's something that's really fun to look at. You'll have to sign in, but it's free to sign in. And let's say we want like, we'll just click B and see what it comes up with for us. So let's say we want like this bolt company. So this has its brand style guide. It has a PDF that has everything about it. And it's going to give you what the font size is or how to use their fonts, things like that. And that's kind of fun to go off of to try to make something your own. And we're going to be making something similar to that for our brand style guide also. Just naming what colors that we're using and what fonts that we're choosing to keep everything unified. And you'll see that in the description on Moodle for the assignment today. So if I go back to week 1, I can go to menu design, and then it'll be listed in here. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Yes, it does.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's keep going. So if I go to the One Cafe's website, we can see how they're listing their store hours and their date. You can see that there's a little bit of redundancy on theirs, and so I'm going to change that on ours by just adding a text box. And we'll just say ours, and we want it to be centered. And we'll say Monday through Saturday. And I think it was 8 a.m. to, or 10 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. or something like that. Oh, 11 a.m. We'll go back and fix that. And then below that, Sundays. Below that, we'll put their address. And they have their phone number listed out under that. All right, so let's go through and kind of add some design to this on top of it. So for my header, I want something that stands out just a little bit more than that, and I'm gonna go with the Britannica Fold. Yeah. And I want this to be just a little bit bigger, so I'll set it to 14. For the rest of these, I want something that's not trying to compete with header or with the header of our hours. So I just want to find something that is a sans serif font. And I think what I was going with earlier was Gill Sans. Something that feels like it is pretty cohesive with this header right here. And so if I zoom out, I can press W on my keyboard. I press W, and that's going to show me what I have so far. And so one more thing that I want to do is add in some rectangles as some kind of a motif to be reoccurring throughout this. And I think I want to scooch my text box down just a little. Okay, so I want to add in these rectangles. That's going to give us a little bit of depth and kind of a sense of cohesion as well. We'll change the stroke to none and change the fill to paper. And I'll draw out a second one and just kind of make it a little bit skinnier. And it's going to create a little bit of overlap that's going to tie in our picture in with our cafe label. When I rotate that around and hold shift, it's going to lock it in at 90 degrees. Duplicate it. If I hold Alt on my keyboard, it's going to duplicate it. And then if I rotate that around while holding shift, it's going to lock it at 90 degrees. Okay, if I press W, that's going to give me a sense of what I've got here so far. And I think that that's looking pretty good so far. Okay. So let's press W and move on to our back page. So what I want for this one is to have kind of an about section that says a little bit more about like it's a locally owned cafe. And I want it to have a picture down at the bottom. It could be of the restaurant, it could be of the owners. I'm just gonna leave it as an empty frame for now. And then I'm gonna draw out just a background rectangle. I'm gonna put fill And then let's go ahead and change the color so that it's not just one of these default ones. So if I double click in here on the box that has the red line across it, it's going to give us this color picker. And right now it's set to RGB color. And so it has these kind of pretty funky colors, and it makes it kind of hard to choose what you're looking for. So I'm just going to click the H right here, and it's going to give us our normal color picker that you might see in Photoshop. And that's going to give me a chance to get something that's a little bit closer uh, to what I'm going for more quickly. And so I just want a pretty light gray, something that looks close to this background of the crepes back here. And then I'm going to click in CMYK, and I just have to click in this text box, and you can see that this swatch changed to add CMYK swatch instead of HSB swatch. So that's going to find the CMYK color that's closest to where we picked a second ago. And that's going to let us select that color in the future too by adding that down here into our swatches panel. Okay, so since I want that to be the background, and I don't want that to move around, I'm gonna do Control and left bracket key to move that all the way to the back, and then I'm just gonna do Control L to lock it. So now I can't move that around. And then the other way to do that is to go to Object, and I'm going to unlock all of them. So I'll click it and go to Object, Lock. And then on your keyboard or on your computer, if you're on a Mac, it might say Command L. But again, that's just going to make sure that I can't move that around now. So I can add some text on top of that. And I'll just say About Us. Press Enter, and then over here in our properties again, all the way down at the bottom, we have a button that says Fill with Placeholder Text. And so that's going to drop in some Latin. That's just going to say kind of some nonsense text, but it's just going to fill up what's here so that we have a sense of what it'll look like when it has the actual copy from whichever business that we're going off of. Okay, so I want this text to feel more uniform with what we put over here with our hours. So the first thing I want to do is I'll select just our header, the About Us, and I want to go to Characters, and I want to choose that Britannica bold again. And I want it to be a little bit bigger than what it is too, so I'm going to set it to probably 20, maybe even bigger than that. Let's try 24. And then something that I'm keeping in mind, this pink line here is our margin. So that's saying that this is kind of our safety zone. We don't want text to be outside of this margin, and we don't want important imagery to be outside of the margin either, because that's just a little bit too close to where the printer might be able to chop that off. And we want to make sure that we have our full text on there. The second part that I want to do is select all of my body text. And I want to set that to Gil Sans like we had a second ago for the other text in here. And I want to leave that at 12. Oh, I need to charge my computer in a second. I'm going to leave that at 12-point font so that it's big enough for people to read it. So if I go back here and I do Control 0 or Command 0, that's going to give me a full view of what this is going to look like. It's going to give us a full view of what we're seeing on our picture. Hopefully I can see that I didn't take off the stroke on my box. So let's go to Object, Unlock All and Spread, click on our box, and then I'm just going to set that stroke to 0. And then I'll do Control L to lock it again. But we can see that this is it's a little bit smaller than what a paper size would be. It's not quite truly 8.5 by 11 inches, at least on my screen. But you want to kind of keep that in mind just in case if you're making something like a business card or something that It feels easy to read when it's zoomed way up, but sometimes when you're zoomed way out, it's too hard to see. Okay, so I want to set some things up about character styles and paragraph styles now. So if I click into our text box again, the first thing I want to do is select our header. And if I go to paragraph styles, or if I go to window and styles, and choose paragraph styles over here, it says the keyboard command is F11 for me. It's going to pull up this little box over here. And so we want to create a new style. So we're going to click this little plus sign in a box. And that paragraph style 1 is going to pop up. We're just going to double click that. And that's going to give us our dialog box options. Oh, give me 1 second. Okay. So the first thing that we want to do is just give this a name, header. And right now it has it set to the style of the text that we have it set outside. And so we're just going to click OK. And we're going to come back to that in a second. Let's click on the rest of our text. And I can see that it jumped to 24 points. So we want to switch that back to 12 points. Okay. And so I want to select all of this as well and click on new style. And we'll double click on paragraph style 1. And we'll just rename that one body text or body. So what that Okay, so what that does for us is it's going to save some settings for how our body and our header are going to be consistently used throughout our document. And so what that's doing, if I do view and show special characters, there we go. So type and show hidden characters. Okay. Well, anyway, what that's doing is it's breaking apart these different paragraphs. So we can see each of these as a different paragraph. And it's treating that as their own paragraph, and it wants to replicate the style that they're using. So anytime that it sees the paragraph return, which looks like the symbol, it's going to treat that as a new paragraph. So right now, if I press delete and press enter, I'll have a new paragraph there. If I hold shift and press enter, it's going to treat that as the same. It's not going to put a character return right there. And so let's press enter and I'll show you what I mean. So if we're in this paragraph and I can just click in anywhere, I don't have to select anything. I can set this to header, and it's not going to affect this character or this paragraph, but it is going to affect everything that was in the paragraph that we were in. And if we want to set it back, we can set it to body, and that's going to remember what style that we set it to a second ago. So let's do enter here, just so that we can try that again down at the bottom. And those are pretty big, so we'll set those back to how they were. And so let's say we want to make like a book or something that has a lot of different text boxes. This will be really handy for us if we have a really large document and we want to make a full change over everything in the document. We don't want it to be just about this one paragraph, but we want it to be across the whole spread of everything. And that would take ages to go back and, oh, we didn't like the font that we used here. So we want to make that change broadly over everything. And so let's kind of put that in action really quick. So let's go ahead and make another text box over here on the left. And we might say like menu options, and we'll just put some filler text in here too. And maybe we think that this is a header. Okay. So anything that's on our document is going to follow these same paragraph styles. So if I click in here, it's going to set this all to our body text and our menu options, and this to our header text. And we can do that with the rest of this too. But let's say we don't like the text that we're using over here. So what we can do is we change the font to maybe this Azo Sans Uber. And you can see here that there's a little plus sign that has appeared next to our header because it's different from the other ones. And so if I set that back to it and I can double click on that. Oh, no, I want to right click, sorry. Sorry, so I'll right click and we can say apply header, or we can say clear overrides. So if I say apply header, what that's going to do is switch it back over to here. And if I right click and say clear overrides, that's also going to switch it back. Oh, sorry, there we go. So if we click redefine style, that's going to broadly change it across all of the text. There we go. And so maybe we want to set it back to our Britannic bold. We'll right click and we'll say redefine style, and that's going to adjust all of them on our document. So that doesn't apply to just our font type. We can also do anything that has to do with our character panel, anything that has to do with our paragraph panel. So what that might be is maybe we want all of our text to be right justified, and maybe we want all of our spacing to be just a little bit wider. So maybe we can set that a little bit wider. So now we can see that plus sign has appeared again, and we're just going to come back into redefine style. And now it adjusts everywhere, and it adjusts with all of those changes that we made. So if we set it back to auto and left justified, we have that plus sign here again. And so we'll redefine, and that's going to adjust it everywhere. Okay. So I want to keep going and designing my document here. And we've got this frame here. Let's go ahead and add in a picture. Do fitting, fit frame proportionally. And we want to send that to the back so that our little white lines can stick up on top of it. So we'll do Control or Command on a Mac and our bracket keys. I want the regular selection tool. There we go. And then I don't want that to be crossing over here so much. I think I want that image to be just up my crepe. And so I'll double click on it. And I can hold shift to scale proportionally. And I can make that bigger so that I can just see my crepe plate. Yeah, okay, that's looking pretty nice. I think what I want is, I don't want these lines quite so large over it. And so I'm going to scale that down a little bit. And I think I want this one to be rotated vertically. There we go. So that's going to give us just a little bit of visual consistency with this front cover. It's pulling some of these colors, some of these like neutral colors from this first page, and then it's bringing it over here. And it's telling us our focal point is still on this text here. So the next thing I want to do, I'm going to delete this text box on the left, and I want to create a part of my menu. So if we're thinking about it again, what we have right now is our front page. This will be the cover. This will be the back. So if we were just to flip it over while it's all closed, we're going to see the About Us section. Maybe down here, can scale that up a little bit, shorten it just a little bit, and add in another text box. So I'll just do hold Alt and drag that down. And I want to delete everything in here, and I just want to do www.the1cafe.com. And I want that to be centered, and I want to match those styles that's over here. So I'll center it, and then I know that I want that text to be Botanic bold, just so that they have a way to contact them later. Okay, so back to what we were doing. Let's add a table in for our menu over here on the left. I'm going to do Control W, just W, so that I can pull up my bleed and margins again. And I'll hold space to drag it over a little bit. I'll drag out a text box so that it can, so that it kind of covers that whole panel. And let me pull this down a little bit. What I want to do to insert a table is I'll go up to this table tab and I'll say insert table. And it's going to give us a dialog box that asks us how many rows and how many columns we want us to have, as well as how many header rows that's going to have. And so for us, we don't really need any header rows. We just want a body. But if you're making something like a report, or I think it was Nicole said that she's working for the Thunder, so maybe she's making like statistics for one of the players. Yeah. You might want some more detailed rows or headers and footers. And so for us, we're just going to stick with 6 and 2. So we'll say that we have 6 menu options, and we want to say what the name of it is and the price of it. So we'll click OK. And so that's going to give us our table right over here. I'm going to hold Alt and scroll up so I can zoom in. Okay. And so if we go back to the One Cafe's menu, and we can kind of go in here and kind of get some of their items that they offer. So let's say we're going for this Yes cheesecake and the Sweet Dreams cheesecake, and their dessert crepes. So we'll say Yes cheesecake, cheesecake, and Sweet Dreams. And over on the right, we'll just put in our prices. So it's going to be $6.29 and $6.29 for both of them. So we have just a table here, but that doesn't really look like how a menu looks typically, right? And we're designers, we want to be classier than that. So let's go into our table styles. So I have that over here already, but if you don't have it, you can click on window and type in tables, and we'll just click on table down here. And so that's going to give us some of our table options. So we can choose if we wanted to have fewer rows, or maybe we want to add another column for a description. Over here, you can see that it added an extra column to the right, and it's past where we want it to be, but also we have a lot of space around our price right now. So you can see down here, we have this at least and exactly section that's going to say how big we want that height to be and that space to be of our width of our columns. And so we can change these here. So we can say that we want it to have less room on the price and less room on this too, so that it lines up with our margins. And we could actually place these over here instead. Let me go put my battery in really quick. Alrighty, so now that probably won't die on us, which is good. These are the benefits of having class in person. But, okay. So, let me just check in with everybody. Is everyone following along okay? Does anyone have any questions or anything like that so far?
I'm just kind of confused on the table part. You said to go to window and get table, correct?
Yeah, so window, it'll be type in tables, and then down here it says just table. And that's gonna bring up our little options box over here for us. So it'll allow us to edit the table, the cell styles, and the table styles, and we'll get to those other ones in a second. Does anyone else have any questions? Sounds good. Moving forward. So let's go ahead and keep editing this table really quick. So go back through, and I actually just want to have the price and the name. So we'll say 629, 629, and then I want to add some descriptions and maybe. And so I can kind of adjust my scales over here. Also, we don't have to do it just over here. Okay. So below that, we have some options, and you might be kind of familiar with these of how things are going to be lining up in our document. Right now, they're pretty aligned already. But if we had a lot more space, let's say for these kind of text cells, and we say we want it to align top, align center, that kind of gives us a little bit more say on what we're doing. So let's actually go back to just our 2 rows, and we'll kind of adjust it like that. So I'm going to drag this down, and we're going to go through and fill in the rest of these. For now, I'm just going to copy and paste what we have. And what I want to do is make some room so that they can have their description in their individual cell. So we can say, what is a yes cheesecake? Homemade sweet cream, strawberries and cream. That sounds tasty. Okay. And so you can see that these aren't even right now. We want to kind of keep them even. And so let's go into table styles. And we have something that looks really similar to what we had when we had paragraph styles and character styles earlier. And so we're going to click create new style. And it's going to give us table style 1. And we want to make some edits to this so that we can adjust it to everything that's over here. So first thing is I want this to follow kind of our conventions that we had set up over here already. So we'll choose Britannica Bold. And over here, we're just going to set that to our Gill Sands. And I want the text to be just a little bit smaller for the description. So we'll set it to 10 points. And we want the text to be a little bit bolder for the name of our item. And for the price over here, I want that to be center aligned, and I want that to be Gill Sands as well. So now that we have our table style, we'll say apply the table style 1, and let's double click it, and so that's going to bring up our table styles options bar. And so we'll call that menu. And let's click into table setup. And then that's going to let us choose some changes that we're going to make. So if we click back over to here and do Control W, oops, sorry, just W, you can see that that still has the outlines around the rows and the columns, and everything has just the blank background right now. And so if we click on table style 1, that menu again, and we can make some changes to how this is going to appear. So we'll turn on preview so that we can kind of see what we're doing. And for row strokes, we want it to say none. We don't want it to, we don't want it to be affecting anything. We want it to have no rows, or sorry, no strokes over all of this. So we'll go to general, we'll say no table style. We'll have everything set the same. Header rows and footer rows are going to be all the same. Table setup. We can say table border. We don't want there to be a border, so we'll set that to 0. We can go to rows. We don't want there to be rows, so or strokes on our row. So we can say custom and turn that to 0 as well. And same with columns. For fills, this is going to be if we wanted a background color on each of them. So we could say like every second row or every other row, we want it to be grayed out. For our purposes, we don't really need that. So we're just going to say none and click OK. We zoom out. And And then let's click in cell style so that we can affect it so that it has the same font choices as well. So we'll say menu item. And if we double click it, it's going to give us some of our information. So we have our text, and this is going to explain how things are lining up inside of here. Um, so what that's going to do is give us some of our padding, how things are going to be lined up, and some of our strokes and fill. So that's going to say like if we want a specific stroke and fill um, on here, so we can say we want to select the top edge and the left edge, and we'll give it a weight. We'll say it's black and the preview. There we go. Alrighty, and then if we wanted to change the cell fill color, we could say we want that to be our gray. And maybe we like that for description, so it kind of sticks out a little bit like that. Let's go back to table, and I think what I would like to do is adjust that so that the description doesn't have quite so much space in it. So we'll pull that up. And you can see that it's making those changes. Let's say that I wanted to do that with the Sweet Dreams one as well. And we could kind of continue that on. I'm not a huge fan of how that looks right now, so I'm gonna delete those from that, but I just wanted to show you guys how that looks and how you can use that tool just in case. Okay, so let's go to paragraph styles. And I'm going to do new, and we'll call this one menu item. And I want to use menu item on each of these. And then we'll copy this description across. But I want this to mimic the body text as well. And I'm going to add a paragraph style and call this one menu description. And paste that here. And I'll do one more for the price. Okay, so now I should be able to go through and just add that price in and fit everything to these menu descriptions. Okay. So now we have our first little menu item written out. But let's say we want to add a header in. So And I have these lines here that we want to get rid of too. So we'll go back to our table options. Table. And let's go into table up at the top, and then table options and table setup. And so you can see how this is going to give us some more control over everything that's in our table right now. And so if we go to row strokes, we just want to say custom and set that to 0. So that's going to keep these consistent at least. And then for table setup, we don't have any header rows now, but we want to add one that says crepes at the top. So we'll say 1. And let's see. I think I like how that looks, so we'll just click OK. And so we're going to call that crepes. And what I want to do is go back into paragraph styles. And I want to call that header. Okay, so now we have our first little menu items, and it's starting to come together. And we might not want crepes to be on the back panel. We probably want that to be what you open up to, because that's kind of what they make typically. So let's add a picture in. And drag out this one. We'll call that maybe savory crepes at the top. And then we'll do another one. Actually, let's go ahead and drag some of these little rectangle lines across, just so that we're keeping things a little consistent still. I'm hitting the control bracket keys to move that forward. And I'm holding shift to lock that at 90 degrees. And that's looking maybe a little bit cluttered. Let's move that down a little. That way it's not quite so repetitive. That should be pretty good. So I like how that's looking, but I want to put that on a different page. And so what I'm going to do is select all of it by clicking and dragging, and I can right click and say group. And I'll hold Alt and drag that across over to here. If I press W, that's going to let me see my guides again. And I want that to be centered into this page. And so like we were saying earlier, this is going to be pretty much if you opened up your menu and saw it left, center, and right. So this will be the inside right flap, the center flap, and then the right inside flap. Okay, so we want savory crepes over here. Let's do one more, and we'll call that sweet crepes. So I'll right click and say ungroup now. And I just want the table, so I'm going to do Alt and drag across. And I want to shrink that and make one more down at the bottom. Okay. That's starting to look pretty filled out now. Let's go back and see what else they have. I believe it's poke bowls, and then they have uh, some boba tea also, that's right. So let's go ahead and rename some of these. We'll say bowls, and we'll call. Okay. All right, so now I can come back in and drag in some of my images from before. So let's go ahead and create a frame. We'll press delete so that we can see our margins again. Yeah, let's realign some things before we get too far into it. So we'll make sure that that's aligned over here. I want this to align to the left since we will be seeing them next to each other. And I don't want a big image right in the center. I want to give myself room for a big list of crepes. And so I'm going to get rid of some of these little extras. And let's go ahead and drag out another of these black boxes. And we'll put that over here. And we'll stretch it across. And do control and bracket and send that to the back. Maybe I'll change my text color to white. Okay. So I'm gonna add a few more rows to this table here. We'll extend that so I can see everything. Go to hide hidden characters, just so we're not seeing those anymore. Then let's set all of these to be we'll call it 0.66 then. Just so that they're even. And we'll replicate that here as well. So let's go back to table options. Make sure that's aligned right there. Okay. And so what I want to do is add in more of these rows and cells. And right now you can see that it shows that there's 8 here, but they're not actually appearing. And so we're going to shrink that down and go into table options and see why that's happening. So table options. And it shows that my table options are blanked out right now. So let's take another look at that. So I'll check that out over here on its own so I can see what's happening more. And let's give it that space that it's needing. Oops. Okay, so now we can see that it is adding in these extra rows. We just weren't able to see them earlier. And so what that might mean is the table styles is not showing those different rows. So we'll just hit this menu and apply menu to it. And then same with the prices as we go through. And we'll move that back over. So maybe something was just getting covered. Oh, whoops. One more. That was supposed to be more sweet grapes. It's not supposed to be sweet grapes. Okay. And then I have one more picture that I was going to add in over here. So let's add in our frame. And grab my last image. Alrighty. Right. So over here, let's go ahead and replace that image with this other one. I'll hold shift so that it scales it proportionally. And I'll scoot that over. Maybe a little too big. I want to get all of those nice colors in it and still be able to see what we're looking at. And I want to make that just a little bit wider as well, so that it's going all the way to the margin. Okay. We'll rename those bowls at the top here, and over on the right, we'll call this one salads. All right. So other than the particulars of what the menu says, I think that we have everything figured out now. So if we click W, we can see what it'll look like when it's all printed. Just a few things that I want to double check, seeing as how this isn't quite aligned, and I want that to stay aligned. So we'll go ahead and snap that over. Alrighty. It looks like there's an extra line at the bottom here, so I'm gonna just shrink that down because I just want the 3 of them. Okay. And I think I can fit one more item in here so that it's a little bit more even. So I'll copy that, paste that down here, do that, and paste that down here. Okay. And maybe we'll take just one more space. Okay. All right. So that's looking pretty good to me. What questions do you guys have?
No, I think we addressed all the questions. Well, addressed the questions I had. I don't know about
Okay.
anyone else.
Yeah, what other questions do people have? Do you feel like you'd be able to make something like this on your own if I set you loose?
Does it have to be specifically like this, or can we just kind of do our own design?
No, your own design.
Okay.
Yeah, I want you guys to get to stretch your creative muscles. So I'm gonna stop screen sharing.
And this, I saw that all the instructions were together on the Moodle.
Mhm.
So with the A, B, C, D, E, F part, you said that A was F's other side.
Yeah, so let me go, oops.
That part was the only part that kind of confused me.
Gotcha. So let me go back over to this version, and I'll turn on my panel names again. Okay, so what we have over here, let me minimize that. So we have ABC. So if we're looking at it from the outside, this is going to be our front cover. Let me see if I can arrange this. Okay, so we'll have over here is we have our front cover, our back side, and then our outer flap. And then if we are looking at it fully opened, laying on the counter, we have DEF, and that's going to line up over here. So what you were saying was right about A being the back side of F. And then,
Okay, awesome.
yeah, cool. And then I'll post both of these today too. And then let's do, before we close out of the screen sharing, let's go ahead um, and export this. So move this time. So right now I just have it as unsaved, but I want to go and talk about kind of our document sizes and document sharing. So if we click export, we're gonna get a dialog box. This is the PC dialog box. The Mac one will look a little bit different from this. But we have some options of how we're going to save it. And so something that you'll see in our description for the homework is I want you to turn these in as PNGs and as the InDesign files. So let's go ahead and save it as a PNG first. And then the naming convention, I believe it's going to be your first name, your last name. And then it should be week 1. And we'll call it menu design. And we'll click save. And it'll pull up this box and it's going to say how many pages, how do you want things saved as. And we'll say we want to do incremental numbers. So that's going to be saying front or 1 and 2. So you'll see here an example of it. It'll say menu design 1 for the front side and menu design 2 for the back side. We want to say all pages because we want both of them. If we had a larger book, then we might want like just the first 10 pages or something for an example. That's where we could change that range. And then we'll set it as all of these should be the same except we want color space to, yeah. So everything else should be the same. So we'll go ahead and click export. All right. And we also want to save our document, so we'll do save as, and we'll just call that First name, last name. Pick one. And I'll call mine menu class demo or menu design, so that you can open it too. Alrighty. So at this point, I would set you loose and let you guys get started, and so that you could ask me questions in class while you're working on it. That way you can get a head start on it too. So I'm gonna hang out here and let you guys screen share as you're wanting to. And that way we can kind of all talk about what's happening and what kind of changes we might need to make it on our own things, and if any questions are popping up. So let's go to back to Zoom. Here we go. All right, and I'm gonna hit stop recording.